Both presidential candidates are back on the campaign trail. President Biden responding to post-debate panic and former President Trump taking a victory lap. Now, this came hours after a rematch 4 years in the making. President Biden and former President Trump squared off in the first presidential debate of the election cycle on Thursday, and the 90-minute affair gave voters a chance to compare the candidates as they faced questions about the economy, abortion, immigration in the Middle East, as well as Trump's recent criminal conviction. The event was highlighted by rambling answers by the current president and falsehoods by his predecessor.
Dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters.
No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties?
When the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up.
Well, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
That perhaps the most heated that the two candidates got. We are at both campaign rallies, and we start with our Weijia Jiang, who is with the president in Raleigh, North Carolina. Weijia, what was the reaction by people there over his debate performance?
Lana, great to be with you. Before the rally started, we spoke with several campaign officials and aides close to President Biden, along with voters who wanted to brush this off as a bad night. In fact, many were saying a terrible night, not trying to disguise the fact that it was not President Biden's best performance. That said, they were also hoping that he would come out here on stage and redeem himself. And I can tell you, it certainly seemed like a different person on that stage. President Biden, during the rally, was sharp. He was energetic. He was clear. And he went after Donald Trump, laying out all of the lies and falsities that he told during the debate last night. And another thing that Biden did was take on his own performance head on. He acknowledged his age, and he said that wasn't going to stand in the way of the job he knows he is meant to do. Take a listen.
I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
And after that, President Biden went on to say that he gave the public his word that if he didn't believe in his heart and soul that he could do this job and do it well, he wouldn't. He said that the stakes were far too high, and the crowd here was electric. They, of course, were responding to President Biden, who wants to try to turn the page here. But the reality is, Lana, that there are still a lot of questions that remain, including from people within the Democratic Party, wondering if Biden ought to continue the path that he is on, if he should be the nominee in November. But certainly, if you ask the White House, if you ask the campaign, if you ask Joe Biden, the answer is yes.
Sometimes different. All right, Weijia Jiang in Raleigh, North Carolina. Thanks, Weijia. We want to bring in now CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. She is on the campaign trail with former President Trump in Chesapeake, Virginia. So, Caitlin, tell us what we're hearing now from the former president.
Is that correct?
Hi, Lana. That's right. You can see former President Trump still speaking right behind me. He had come here to Virginia post-debate and is, quite frankly, taking a victory lap here. All of the speakers this afternoon before the former president referenced the debate last night. And when Donald Trump took the stage here, he asked the crowd about the debate. And notably, Lana, he also addressed Biden's age, but maybe not not in the way that you might think. He said, look, this is not about age, it's about incompetence. And these are two candidates, of course, who are similar in age. So making that line, that kind of distinction is something that he did here today. But it's also significant, the setting for this post-debate rally. It's here in Virginia. This is not considered your typical battleground state that we've been talking about this cycle, but this is one that the Trump campaign has been wanting to make competitive. And it's significant because, as you can see, he's talking behind me, the governor of Virginia appeared for the first time with Donald Trump this afternoon. Governor Glenn Youngkin, a Republican who, when he ran in 2020, he distanced himself from Donald Trump, tried to kind of thread the needle in Republican Party politics. Now he has embraced Donald Trump. He's here campaigning for him today, and that is a signal the campaign at least hopes is signaling to Republicans that Republicans are coming home.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns there for us. Thank you.